Sunday, November 10, Harking back to Abraham. Jesus was not shy in declaring who he was, nor in calling on witnesses to testify to who he was, even witnesses who were long gone, including Abraham. In John 8:56 we read, "Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it, and was glad." Why was Abraham's witness so important that it was included in John's Gospel? Well, first of all, we look at Genesis chapter 12 and verse 3. "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." And Genesis 18 verses 6 to 18. "When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, 'Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations of earth will be blessed through him.'" And then Genesis chapter 26 and verse 4. "I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands. And through your offspring all nations of earth will be blessed." And Matthew chapter 1 verse 1. "This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham." And Acts chapter 3 verse 25. "And you are heirs of the prophets and of the covenant God made with your fathers. He said to Abraham, 'Through your offspring all peoples on earth will be blessed.'" We read in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 154, "Through type and promise God preached before the gospel unto Abraham." Galatians 3 verse 8. "And the patriarch's faith was fixed upon the Redeemer to come. Said Christ to the Jews, 'Your father Abraham rejoiced that he should see my day, and he saw it and was glad.' John 8:56, quoted by Ellen White from the Revised Version. Margin. The ram offered in place of Isaac represented the Son of God, who was to be sacrificed in our stead. When man was doomed to death by transgression of the law of God, the Father looked upon his Son, said to the sinner, 'Live, I have found a ransom.'" End of quote. Abraham was the father of the Jewish nation. He received the promise that through him all nations would be blessed. This blessing came through the Messiah, born through his lineage. Abraham was also the father of those who respond to God in faith, as we read in Hebrews 11, verse 8, "By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going." And then verses 17 to 19, "By faith Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, 'It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned.' Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so, in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. His willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac, we read about in Genesis chapter 22, the son of promise, was not only an evidence of faith, but a window into the plan of salvation. When Jesus said, "Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day," in John 8:56, the leaders responded, "You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" in verse 57. Jesus' answer was astounding. "Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Verse 58. Jesus uses language reminiscent of what God said to Moses at the burning bush. This was a claim to be God, the self-existent one. No question, the leaders understood the implication of what he said, because they then took up stones to throw at him. Let's read that whole story in John 8, verses 56 to 59. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. You are not yet 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham. Very truly I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. At this, they picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. And so to finish today, read Romans chapter 4, verses 1 to 5. How does Paul use the story of Abraham to reveal the great truth of salvation by faith alone, without the deeds of the law? How do these verses help us understand the idea of Abraham as the father of those who live by faith? Romans 4, beginning at verse 1. What then shall we say that Abraham, our forefather, according to the flesh, discovered in this matter? If, in fact, Abraham was justified by works, he had something to boast about, but not before God. What does Scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now, to the one who works, wages are not credited as a gift, but as an obligation. However, to the one who does not work, but trusts God who justifies the ungodly, their faith is credited as righteousness. How does Paul use this story of Abraham to reveal the great truth of salvation by faith alone, without the deeds of the law? How do these verses help us understand the idea of Abraham as the father of those who live by faith? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.